not banned. Indian diet is mostly carbohydrate. They would eat only roti and dal, that's it, finished. So they don't have actually fats. So why are they obese? As she said, carbohydrate leads to belly fat. So that is why you have to eat fat also, carbohydrate, and I'll give you a guideline that carbohydrate should form about 50 to 60% of your calorie requirement, and about 25 to 35% fat and 15% proteins. Okay, and that's it. And you have to have some fiber also every day. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We try and increase our protein intake when we balance out the carbohydrates. So we try and take more of proteins and less of carbohydrates.
You know what I want to say here is that we don't eat proteins and carbohydrates, and we eat food. Please understand food as food groups. Understand what is a cereal, understand the pulse, understand the fruits and vegetables, the nuts and seeds, and then plan your diet. It is physically, as we are academicians also, we talk in terms of percentages, but we don't eat in terms of percentages. We eat in servings. So understand these food groups, understand servings, what is the serving size, are you meeting the requirements, and then go back. I was asked this question recently last week I was speaking in Fortis, and this lady asked me a question. I have a baby and I need to know how much percentage of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. This is just to, make it...
Augment that, yes.
Yeah, and I said, listen, what do you understand about carbohydrates? What do you understand about protein? What do you understand about fats? She says, I don't know, but I want to figure out how to calculate it. I said, even if I have to calculate my calories, proteins, I need a calculator or software. I would either take half an hour to do my calculations. So it's physically, it's not the way, it's not possible. So please don't become unrealistic. I did give her the percentages, but please, like I said, be real and understand food in the right context. And I just needed that question to be brought up again regarding high triglycerides. So when you have high carbohydrates, you also have high triglycerides, even if they're coming from. Yes.
One more thing to that, if you're taking only fruits, you're starving yourself by not eating anything else.
Absolutely.
Your body is burning fat and your triglycerides are increasing.
Balanced food, but a little more extra fruit, which is causing high.
No, your fruit cannot. Your fruit is not. It's not right. Your fruit cannot increase your triglycerides. Yeah. It can't do that.
This is a misconception.
Yeah, misconception.
Well, I would like to qualify here. Fructose has recently been identified as a risk factor for triglycerides and belly fat.
I have a question.
Yes, I will just now try and sum up this more than get into health foods. I will. Okay, on a macro level, a few things about what to eat, and then understanding the principles of healthy eating, and we'll say goodbye.
The questions.
Yeah, there are 2 or 3 questions which are very specific regarding gallbladder stones and thyroid. We will address them.
I have a question about the weight management.
Yeah, the thing
some medical journal.
I'm going to speak about it, ma'am. So see if you can find your answer in that.
Just one question. I have read that 5 kg per decade.
I will have to answer that individually. Pick up my book. It answers that very well. The diet doctor. It's talking about all kinds of fat. Now, not in a large fatty liver.
And can it be reduced?
Well, fatty liver is a sign of extra fat in the liver. You have to manage your weight and your diet. Watch your diet.
It can be reversed.
What is your opinion about 5 kg weight gain per decade? It's a natural phenomenon. And we should not struggle it.
It's a natural phenomenon.
It's a natural phenomenon.
I'm afraid it's not.
This is an article that
Your metabolic rate drops, but obviously you have to be smarter in your lifestyle to ensure that it doesn't happen. That is in fact a sign of good health. If you manage your weight at 20 till you are in your 70s or 80s, you are in good shape, likely to be in good shape. Now, just a few things about what to eat. Of course, you have to watch calories, but calories has become again overhyped. We've gone completely wrong with calorie counting. We have mobile apps, we have got nutrition information which is not working. So what makes those calories is very important. So please look at, like I said, your food groups and understand where your calories are coming from. It's just not about calories. And then it's about carbohydrates. What kind of carbohydrates there are good? Carbohydrates again have become a little dubious. There are good and bad carbohydrates, not so good carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates, it's like a fuel for our body. We need energy to perform work, and that's where carbohydrates come in. So we definitely need much less than before. So yes, carbohydrate requirements have changed. And there are good carbohydrates in what we call low glycemic carbohydrates. Raise your hands, how many of you have heard of the word glycemic index? GI? Fantastic. So this is really what determines the quality of a carbohydrate. Low GI carbohydrates, this goes beyond the scope of today's thing, but yes, look at find low glycemic carbohydrates. They are all around you. You don't have to go to a special health food store to buy these. These are available in our house, in our households. We use them, but understand them. And these are carbohydrates which will help prevent belly fat.
Good fat and bad fat.
Okay, these carbohydrates typically among the cereals. What are the sources of carbohydrates? Cereals. Can we say cereals? And pulses.
See, there is a misconception here, general misconception that I am eating a lot of protein because I am eating a lot of pulses. So pulses are not only protein, they have a lot of carbohydrates.
Absolutely,
so please understand.
I will quiz you on that. But yes, that is a very important source of carbohydrates. That's a low GI. So then we have sugars, and then we have all the fruits and the sweet things around us. So these are among the cereals. Rice, wheat are all high glycemic, whether it's whole wheat or whether it's brown rice, they are all high glycemic. Whether it's a millet, whether it's a ragi, whether it's a bajra, jowar, they are all high glycemic. What is low glycemic? Barley is a very, very low glycemic grain. Barley is called jaw. Oats is modest, it's about so the cutoff actually is 50. Anything over 50 is considered high, anything under 50 is better. So most of these wheat and rice are in the range of 60 and 70. Barley has a glycemic index of 25. Pulses, all pulses, whether it's a dal or a soya bean or a rajma or a chana or sprouts, so all of these are in the range of say 25 to 35. They're all low glycemic. So that's why in a diabetic flour or in a flour for weight management, we include these grains, right? So that's about the GI, and for sugars etc. are all high.
Brown rice?
Brown rice is about 66. It's high. So essentially, watch your portions of carbohydrates, watch your cereal, the portions of your cereals, and choose low glycemic carbohydrates. And the message now comes to the fruits and vegetable group. I think it's all in your faces, everybody talks about it. It represents good health, plenty of vegetables and fruits. Different colors are beneficial, they have all the antioxidants and the nutrients we're talking about, so use different colors. And then we come to fats. Good fats come from absolutely unprocessed foods. Sources include seeds, nuts, are the best form of getting healthy fats. They are just not processed. So the way the nature has made them for us, these are the best way of getting fats. And then, yes, of course, the toxic fats include all the margarines, the vanaspatis, the reused oils, the high heat refined oils. They are not the healthiest. So with those comments, I'm going to now just share with you 3 very, very basic principles which I hope you remember for the rest of your life. They're very simple principles of healthy eating: variety, balance and moderation. These are scientifically tested, very simple common sense principles. Variety means just don't stick to that one grain or one oil or one fruit or one your favorite vegetable. Different colors, different fruits and vegetables give you different benefits. That's a fantastic phenomenon. I mean, it's a great principle because it also adds variety to our meals. Then you have a variety of food groups. All food groups must be there. And then moderation. Moderation has to do with nothing but portion control. So there is in nutrition, we say no food is good or bad, minus of course toxic fats and poisonous food. No food is good or bad. What matters is the amounts you take. So portion control, even if you want your dessert, you can take a portion of it and satisfy that sweet tooth. But sometimes that doesn't work, and sometimes you say, forget it, forget the belly fat, forget the cholesterol, forget the osteoporosis, forget everything, I'm going to have the whole thing. Right? And that's what drives us, very often we get compelled. So you have the opportunity of what we call balance. Balance means make your compensation for it in the next meal. So that's really very simple. You can also walk a little extra, exercise a little more to be able to compensate for that. So eat a lighter meal if you had a heavier meal. So these are very common sense principles. And of course balance also means if something is good for you, too much or extra of it may not be better. Balance again. So these are of course very, very simple things to do. And I'm going to just end on my subject saying that you have the opportunity of changing your relationship with food by eating right. You are what you eat really is very, very meaningful. There's a saying which says, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. And that really is very meaningful. And getting the right food inside you can actually train your palate. Not only train your palate, you must have experienced when you don't have sugar, even sugar in milk seems sweet. So you have your own thresholds to make, you can train your palate, and I see it all the time with my patients. And they come and tell me, what have you done? Now people are eating around us and we don't feel like eating it. So it's really getting the nutrients back in your body. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this wonderful session. It's been there are some questions which are left. Very quickly, there was a question on thyroid. Would Dr. Srivastava like to take that up? Can thyroid be reversed by medicines or diet?
The questions which we all have synthetic,
We'll take few questions more because I think.
No, I am posting a question.
Okay, about thyroid, because this question has come through mail.
I have also posted my question.
Gallbladder stone. Yes, why don't you do all three of them? The gallbladder stone, the thyroid, and I think the tests have already been covered. So we covered all the questions.
So
the questions, please do take them.
There is a question about thyroid, whether it is curable. Yes, it can be curable. It depends on the cause. What is the cause of your thyroid problem? Thyroid problem may be because of some infection, some inflammation, and some antibodies against thyroid gland in your body. So if you have some treatable cause, like some surgical nodule which can be removed, then thyroid is cured. You don't need any more thyroid hormones. But if it is because of some inflammations, like there is some Hashimoto's disease it is called, and then it can disappear after some time, it can be treated, and then your thyroid is cured. But most of the time, if you have developed hypothyroidism at late age, it's going to stay with you, and you have to take the medicines lifelong. Okay? And second question was about the gallbladder. Yeah. So there is nothing like silent stones. People say, I have sleeping stones or silent stones, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't cause me any pain, so why should I go for surgery? So, smaller stones are bigger problem. Please remember, smaller stones are bigger problems. If you have multiple small stones, get the gallbladder removed, because one day it is going to cause you serious problem. It will get down the duct and get lodged somewhere, and you will have tremendous pain, you will develop jaundice, and at that time operation is not possible. You have to be medically treated, and then sometimes emergency ERCP, it is called, it is done, and then the stone is removed. And later again you will need the surgery. So whenever you have stone, better to get the gallbladder removed.
But I'm sorry to say, when I was diagnosed with gallbladder stones, one of the Max hospital doctors, they said they're sleeping stones, so don't let them be. I mean,
See, in rare cases,
it's almost been a decade now.
It doesn't matter. You may not have any problem till as long as you live. You may not have any problem, but you can have a problem. And very small percentage of stones can lead to malignancy. So that is a big
One thing you must show gallbladder.
malignancy. It can lead to some cancer of the gallbladder. So that is the biggest worry.
One thing you must remember about gallbladder stones. The stones will never form in a functioning good gallbladder. Stones will only form in gallbladders that are subfunctional, because it is the inherent quality of the gallbladder to contract and throw out the bile. It is when the gallbladder loses its contractility that first you will get what is called a sludge. The sludge will change into stones, and by and large, the bigger stones cause less problem than the smaller ones.
Yeah.
So if you have stones in the gallbladder, it means your gallbladder is not functioning the way it should.
Is it
And
true?
there's one more thing I'd like to add here, since you were talking about weight management. Those who are on crash diets or lose weight too rapidly are also prone to developing gallstones.
Is it true that once you get the gallbladder removed, you tend to have digestive problems?
No, I got my gallbladder removed 2 years back and I'm perfect. I don't have a scar on my tummy.
See, gallbladder
It's
is
nothing like that. You can get it.
only a storage organ. It has no other function. It just stores the bile, and when it is required, it releases it. That's it. There is no other function of gallbladder. So you can remove it.
State it, because the idea is like everybody comes up with their.
Excuse me.
I have
Excuse
query
me.
actually from a gynecologist. I'm suffering from galacturia and I have thyroid. Now thyroid, when I had my baby, I had thyroid that was controlled and it was coming in the reading of 2. Now after a year and a half, something which happened in my family, a loss, and then suddenly my throat, voice got down. And then I suddenly again developed thyroid, which readings started coming higher. Galacturia is a problem for which I am persisting for 4 years. All gynecologists have taken only one medicine, that is Favipiravir. Now that increases, goes for twice. I have done all my USG, all done, mammography, everything. I'm worried at this point of time that medicines are for, sometimes it is increasing the prolactin. I'm taking medicine for prolactin. Is it curable? At this age, I'm 35, will it get cured? Is it there in India, a cure for it?
Yeah, 1 second. Before we start the answering also, ladies, if you all have seen, there are these lovely coupons inside. So would request you all to use them at the right time, right? Thank you.
Actually,
over to you.
this topic is so vast that we can have a full day session and still people have a lot of queries.
Excuse me, there is one very important point.
I think we'll have interactive session while and I'll just give 2 lines more about smoking and alcohol. Okay.
No, excuse me please.
Yeah.
I am a doctor and there is one very important point about osteoporosis. How to prevent osteoporosis, because post-menopausal osteoporosis is very common. So how to prevent? Diet for that, please.
I think that's very.
We are really running out of time.
I had one query. In case we talk about stenosis
And symptoms of heart problem taking place. Just to share, if somebody seems to be having a heart attack, what is the right action to take for the people who are around, and what should we do if we are having it and if somebody else is having it? First aid or emergency
Alright,
action.
the first thing you should do is to make the patient comfortable. Okay? Make the patient comfortable, make him less anxious by talking, and give 1 tablet of aspirin, Disprin or aspirin, whatever you have. If dissolvable aspirin, just put it in the mouth, let it dissolve. Okay? There is another medicine which is called Sorbitrate, everybody knows, that should not be given indiscriminately. Okay? unless somebody is having severe pain, only then you give it under the tongue. Otherwise, first medicine to be given is aspirin. And remove him as soon as possible to the hospital. If a person is getting a heart attack, how will you know he is getting a heart attack? Severe pain, and if there is associated sweating.
And make him lie down.
And make him as comfortable. The patient feels comfortable in whatever position, lying down, sitting, he should not be standing. When you give Sorbitrate, patient should never be standing. Okay? If you give a patient Sorbitrate under the tongue and he's standing, he might just collapse. Okay? Because of sudden fall in blood pressure. So he should be sitting. Okay?
And don't get surrounded by too many people.
And make the area comfortable, and don't crowd over the patient. Never. Okay? See, heart failure means the heart is not able to pump out enough blood which is required by the body. That is called heart failure.
Okay, now I think,
Yeah, so heart, that means the amount of blood which should be expelled out of the heart in each beat, it is not going out, it is remaining within the heart. So heart is getting dilated, and that is called heart failure. Okay, and cardiac arrest means heart has stopped. Okay, it's not beating.
I think now specific queries individually can be addressed over lunch, and
Yeah.
we always
just one line I was going to say. Smoking and alcohol. Now please understand, smoking and alcohol do more harm to ladies than men. Okay, it's
That's
about
very important thing.
okay, because
Don't
and
try to
the
do it.
amount of alcohol you take will have about double the bad effect on you than it would have on a man, on a male. So one break is allowed for the ladies every day. I'm not stopping you. One break is
look
allowed.
at the laugh. Look at how ridiculous this is sounding to them.
That's why they say God must be a man.
Yeah.
But you
absolutely.
have ways and means of cutting back. Actually, you can have smaller drinks or diluted drinks. But please don't ask for this limit to be stretched. No.
And smoking is a total no-no.
For skin as well as hair. Very bad. Smoking is really bad for skin.
So alcohol also, if you, another thing, if you take alcohol, you can develop liver disease faster than men. You can have liver disease in maybe 5 years if you have too much of alcohol, and that can lead to cirrhosis. But in men, it would not. That doesn't mean that men are allowed to drink as much as they want. They are allowed only 2 drinks, and ladies are allowed 1.
And women have much smaller livers, so you obviously can't handle that.
We lift like 5 vegetables.
Sorry?
That increases the BMR.
And what she was saying, and please follow this dictum: variety of foods, multicolored vegetables. I mean, all colors of vegetables and fruits.
The answer lies there. That's the answer. Okay, so with this wonderful session, I love the enthusiasm and the questions and the interest. It's actually flattering, and I'm glad that the audience has participated the way you all have. We've covered most of the questions. Specific ones, you can always contact the panelists in their individual capacities. And I think now we're going to be headed for lunch. Is that right? So,
Before you just one question which somebody in the audience wanted me to address, and that was regarding breast cancer. We never spoke about it. In a nutshell, I would only tell all of you that each one of you must know how to do a self-breast examination. And you must do it at least once in a couple of months. So I won't go into detail, but learning how to do your own self-breast examination is your best protection against breast cancer. And of course, there are very many other things, but
how often a mammography has to be done?
Mammography maybe once in 2 years, but that again depends on whether you have a family history of breast cancers or not, and whether you've had lumps in the breast and things like that. But that will take far too much time. But I would just like to tell that all of you are educated women, but do go to your doctor once and ask them, please teach me the right way of doing the breast examination, because that really goes a very long way in preventing breast cancer.
And what is the connection between the ankle
part of the perimenopausal.
That's also nutritional.
You have
that's nutritional.
Yeah, that's nutritional as well as hormone related.
But you need to get it evaluated. I mean, for anyone who's having an anti-swelling, you can't just let it be. In my case, it was a nutrient which was not being absorbed because of an intolerance. That's a different issue. But yes, it can be because of hormones and other serious conditions. That we can discuss one-to-one sometime. Okay, so thanks for being a wonderful audience. I can still see hands going up, so that's you're hungry for more, but I'm sure you're hungry for food too. So I don't want to come in the way. And all I'd like to say is that really, life actually begins at 40. It is true. Believe in it, and I think it's almost like wine. It gets better with age. So I think that's the way to go. I wish you all a fabulous day and lots of good health and happiness. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. After such an inspiring session, just give us 2 minutes. Our Senior Vice President, Harshna Gorodia, will give the vote of thanks for this session today. Okay, I'd like, we've had a wonderful session, and I'd like to give the vote of thanks to Saket City Hospital for the wonderful program. Thank you so much, and it's so important for us. Divya Modi Tomya, Vice Chairperson, Saket City Hospital, and Veena Modi ji, thank you so much for organizing this program for us, and also Sandhya Kaushik from the Saket City Hospital. I'd like to thank our panelists, Dr. Bela Makhija, for very practical advice and things which we hope will prevent disease about our pap smear, about testing. Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Monisha Kapoor, where we step in where lifestyle doesn't help, and especially you said that we can't really follow our grandmother's dictums because their lives are very different from our lives. So we have to take proactive steps, and we have to take special steps to take care of our health. Dr. Akhilesh Srivastava, we have learned one thing is very important, that it's important to get ourselves tested at a frequent, at a certain frequency, because that's the way we will prevent disease. And Dr. Ishi Khoshla, thank you so much for sharing your personal issues and making these things very real. And your dictum that variety, balance and moderation is the key, and good nutrition will take care of almost all our problems. I'd like to thank Anjali Agarwal, governing body member, for coordinating the program. I'd like to thank the media for giving due emphasis to women's issues. Flow Secretariat, Dr. Manju Kalra Prakash and team for seamlessly putting this together. And of course the audience for turning up in this rainy weather and being so involved. Thank you so much, and lunch.